All right, so I'm here. I'm Drew Hill, the realtor, and I'm here with my girl, Gusty Clark. So I've known Gusty for a minute. So Gusty used to work with me in real estate. Gusty is now in the financial space, but you've so Gusty has been in the financial space. So it's not something that she's particularly new to. So Gusty, could you give me just a quick rundown of your background and kind of where kind of your past and how that's led to what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. So, yeah, like Drew mentioned, I am in the financial services right now. And prior to that, I spent about 5 years over in luxury real estate. When I was in real estate, I got a chance to, have access to lots of different property types and how people are moving money and what they're doing with money and how we're buying, multi-million dollar homes and things like that. And that really sparked my interest as to, oh my goodness, there's a whole other way to do this and what we're doing with our money, which is where I wanted to really evolve past that and start to apply, some of these techniques, but not just for myself, but also to help other people because, we all work, the whole point was go to school, get a good job, right? And then it's like, okay, we'll go buy a house. And it's like, okay, well, we've done that. Then what, right? And then getting to retirement. So somehow there's a lot that's missed in between those phases. And having worked in real estate, I got a chance to be exposed and privy to the different techniques that people are doing to leverage, wealth and build and all those things. So that's why I decided to, kind of move my hat to this side of the fence where I can help people more in that particular category so we can sustain ourselves. I mean, we look around, right, in our world and things have changed. Long gone are the days where we could be at one job for 30 years or could buy homes for like less than 100,000 or so a lot of those techniques that used to be applicable are no longer applicable and we have to be way more agile in how we're living our world these days. So this is why I, like again, was really prompted to continue the evolution process in my own career to step on this side of the fence now.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned that. So I'd say the playbook or the guidelines, as you mentioned, it was, get the job and the job, you work that job for 30, 40 years. You're going to get a pension and or pension to go with Social Security or whatever it is. And that will be enough to sustain you in your retirement years and things like that. Obviously, as we look at it right now, Social Security for people, I'd say my age, I'll be 41 in a couple weeks. Um, if we have Social Security, it won't be substantial at all. We don't do pensions really anymore. And so really all people have, hopefully, they either have a 401k or some sort of, IRA or something like that they've been contributing to, hopefully. But even at that, that can fluctuate. Or they have a house where they have some equity that they can be able to tap into. But the playbook has definitely changed. And I don't know that people really got the memo that things have changed. And so for your end, are you doing more, is it more so the planning? Are you setting that planning and that framework and giving people the new rule, the new guidelines, or are you also then implementing and helping them and doing the thing? So what does it look like on your end right now?
Absolutely. So essentially, it's a combination of the two, right? Meaning, first, it's the plan because this nothing works, investments, none of that works unless there's a plan as to when, why, and how, right? So first, it's all about the plan. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? And what do we need to do to kind of get you there, right? So focusing on that plan and also maintaining the plan over time because things change. For example, in the last 2 years, a lot of laws have changed. So now we've got to kind of rejigger our investments and things like that to still make sure that it still works for us, right? So again, the plan and maintaining the plan and implementing the plan. Okay, so that's what I do. So I help you with that and the implementation process, but also the ongoing maintenance of it. So, as you already know, you might look at your finances and your budget and you set it up all nice and neat. We think we're going to look at it again next year, but then middle of the year there might become crunch points or unexpected things happen or whatever. And so those are the things that that we're always kind of looking at for my clients and making sure that we're always on par with what's going on in their lives to make sure that we're staying ahead of that curve. Think about when COVID happened How did that affect your finances? And think about that on a very personal level, right? If that were to happen again today, heaven forbid, but if that happened again today, where would your finances be? Are you in any better position than you were then? Would it be worse? Like, where are you with that, right? So if anything, these are the types of things we want to think about and plan for and mitigate risks around that, to help us continue it, like to sustain a particular type of a lifestyle and our finances. So those are the things that I'm looking at when I create a plan for a family, not just, having the cash flow right here and now, but also how are we mitigating the risks, not today, not even tomorrow, but over time. Things can change in 2 years. So are we set up to account for that, right? And then do we know which levers we need to pull should things change? And that's what I'm doing when I'm doing the planning.
Okay, so it's like so for myself, right? So I have a plan, and it seems to be going to some degree. And like you said, things change, right? So you may have a plan of how you're going to manage and do something, and then maybe someone you have children, and children are expensive, and children continue to be even more and more expensive, and there are different costs, and so you have to adjust in those things like that. And then there are people who are at different points, in their lives, and people have gone through a lot of different things. So would you say that there is someone who's maybe watching this and maybe you know, they could be 17, 18, 19 and thinking, oh, well, I have plenty of time to figure this out. I don't need to go and talk to Gusty. Or maybe there's someone who maybe, getting, 50, maybe they're already, towards the end and they're like, well, it's, there's no point in talking to Gusty because it's too late, So is there a too early? Is there a too late? Is there a ideal time that someone should be having a conversation with you? What does that look like from your end?
So my first response is it's never too early or too late, right? Because it's finances and we need that in order to sustain some form of a lifestyle. Okay. So this is something I used to think about when I was younger. Like I was the career girly. Like I spent about 20 years of my earlier career in corporate HR. And I used to think if I encountered any problems, I'll just work my way through it. I'd pick up a second job if I ever needed to. Like in my mind, I always just imagined like, oh, I'll be fine. Like I can always work through any issues or challenges, right? You can until you can't, right? One
Mm.
of the biggest hidden things that we don't really factor in or think about is what about if we were disabled for any extended period of time? Meaning 3 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months. Not necessarily like for life, but sometimes things can happen. And for me, like I'm a woman, what if, I have a baby and then I have some reason that I need to be disabled for X amount of months, right? So these are things that we didn't necessarily factor in when we were doing the whole career thing. We're always just like, oh, I'll get the salary or oh, I'll be able to this and that. And it's like, well, wait a second, because that can tank your whole financial plan. You might
Hmm.
have your reserves and your savings, but the minute that you can't work for 6, 12 months or whatever the case may be, what did that do to your savings? It's gone. Wipe that.
I, yeah, I think coming to grips with our own, mortality, is a thing of, okay, you don't know that your body can't do something until it can't do it. And I know people who have had just sudden medical things that just appear. Doctors can't figure it out. They don't know what's going on. They've been paralyzed, from, waist down or just different things. And there's no answers. And it's just out of the blue. It's not anything that they did or didn't do. So I think that's one thing that we have to come to grips with is that things can happen to us and it can happen at any age. I know people in their 20s and their 30s, things have happened. It's not just a old people, problem. And I think the other thing is just how we look at jobs and work. Again, the idea that you have job, as long as you, as long as you don't mess up, you'll have job. And I think what we've seen over the past couple of years, especially with a lot of companies and layoffs, right, is like, just because you have a job, you could be doing great. You could be doing, meeting expectations or exceeding expectations, doing really well. But that doesn't mean that, you could get a call the next day and say, hey, we're closing this thing down. And I feel like a lot of people, the idea again was, okay, well, if that happens, I'll get my severance and then, I'll have a job in a week or two or a month. And I feel like now we're seeing, I think I just saw a report that for the first time, there's more job seekers than actual jobs in the country. So there are a lot of things that are outside of our personal control that make having plans and contingencies super important.
Absolutely. And to that point, right? So if you have a job and then all of your benefits are tied to that job, what happens when you're no longer there? Do you still have life insurance? Do you still have income protection? Do you still have disability, right? See, these are all the things that we need to think about. And that's where planning comes in because are you still okay should that job go away, not just the severance package? Like, is your family still fine? Is your income still protected no matter which job you go to?
And so we're gonna get more into this aspect of things. So we're gonna bless the people with a free webinar on the 26th of September at 1:30, and we'll make sure that we have links to that to sign up and register for that. But you just made a great point with regards to how we look at our jobs and work and things like that. And you may say, oh, you sign up, you get your benefits, and you have your life insurance, you have all these different things, but that's solely tied to while you are employed by that company, correct? So if you've been working at a company for 20 years and you've had a life insurance policy for those 20 years, and then you're no longer employed, now you're then out there and you have to go get your own policy now at 30, 40, 50 years old, which is going to be pretty expensive at that time in life. Is that correct?
Yeah. Or what if you have medical conditions by then where it might actually be trickier to get life insurance by then? Which is why this is important to think about ahead of time. And these are different strategies that we can use and what we leverage to also protect your income, because that's the whole point. We want to protect income here. And that's some of the ways that we do that by looking at those different types of areas where you kind of tuck money away. It
Mhm.
also helps you get around different taxes, which we'll spend more time on that. But that's how you're able to get to the path of being wealthy or being able to have sustainable income no matter what happens.
Okay, and so I know people are going to be watching this and they're going to say, okay, this now I'm either excited or I'm scared or I'm something. And we're going to give some jewels, like I said, on the 26th. So can you just walk me through some of the things we'll kind of talk about just so, people can kind of prepare or we can kind of we're not just going to set people up and say, hey, doom and gloom, get your life in order. We're going to give them some tools and resources. So can you just briefly touch on some of the things we'll cover on the 26th?
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to talk about things from the philosophy of and perspective of planning, right? Meaning we'll start with organizing finances. We'll talk about how to protect income. The third thing we like to talk about is like world-class savings, meaning how are we establishing some form of savings and reserves and so forth. The next would be about liquidity. After that, we talk about how to reduce debt. There's always good debt and then there's bad debt, and basically how to do that. And then ultimately, the wealth creation, meaning the investment pieces. A lot of people always ask me, like, oh, is investing hard? Investing in and of itself is not hard. What's hard is having and finding the money to invest in. So that's why we look at it from those different steps, because in each step we can find extra money here or there. We're either overpaying, underpaying, or whatever, and that's how we allocate funds to go be put in investments. So it's not that you need to go run out and get another job and all these other things as much as it is. We're going to talk you or walk you through the process to find the extra dollars that are leaking from your plans already to help you invest.
Thank you. God, see that's very important because I was just about to touch on that because a lot of people, a lot of my audience, my people, like, I ain't got no money. Like, how am I supposed to invest? I have, I'm just squeaking by. I'm doing what I gotta do. I'm working three jobs just to be able to pay different things. But to your point, there are sometimes like it has to be a choice, right? So it has to be, okay, you know what? I am even small things like. Not to say, if you want to get your wing stop, get your wing stop. But you know what? Go get your wing stop. Don't, or whatever your door, don't pay. You probably have your DoorDash things and just going to pick something up. Not to, I would love people to just cook all their food, but people aren't going to do that necessarily. So there are ways, and I guess the conversation might be that maybe you do need to find some other source of income or some ways to reduce some debt and things like that. So I think the importance I believe you're saying is it doesn't take a lot, right? Even if it's $5, starting with $5 a month or $5, whatever it is, any little bit over time, it has it's something. You have to start somewhere.
You can start with what you have right here, right now. Okay. And then we're going to look at how to keep more of what you earn so that more of what you earn can also be allocated to like your longer term investments and things like that to help fund your lifestyle. So it's a matter of like looking at things in a different perspective than what we were all taught. You know, I grew up low income, which is why I've always been on this path of how do I not only create wealth, but have it sustainable, not for just me, but also for my family and to pass down and things like that. And it's actually much easier than what we were all taught. There's just some little tweaks here and there, which is what I'm so excited to share about it. And I could talk about this ad nauseum because this is so important. And I think that this is what was missed throughout school or throughout just different areas. It's very simple, actually. There's just a couple of tweaks here and there, even things with what we do with our house or how we pay down our house, things like that to be able to have the money for investing and then our investments can take care of like our daily expenses and so on and so forth. And it's just simple tweaks like that which can really set us up for like the long term for today cash flow and then also the long term, and that's what I'm excited to tell you all about.
Thank you. And I gotta say, because fortunately, we have to have these conversations. People who look like us, I would say, always say the biggest difference in people is education. And it's not necessarily formal education. It's just these types of things that you're talking about that in my household, like finances were not discussed. So that was something that's in the community. It's kind of a faux pas to talk about finances and things like that, whether they be good or they be bad. You just don't talk about them. And so I think it's super important to have these conversations and really give people the education. Even me at my ripe age of 40, like I'm learning, like we were just talking a couple weeks ago, you put me on game of stuff that I had no idea about. Or I'll be meeting someone, talking to them, and they're talking about the different, tax strategies that they're utilizing. I'm like, oh my, I didn't even know that was a thing, right? And so it's like it's continuing to get that education. And I think working with someone, you got to have I feel like as a person, you need to have people in your, as a you got to have your people. You got to have your real estate agent, right? You got to have your financial planner. You got to have your tax advisor. You got to have all these people kind of around you. So just kind of if you could just speak to just the education piece and how important that is.
Exactly. I mean, and that's it right there. And that's the biggest difference is also being surrounded by the right people who can help you, right? The professionals. Just like when you think about your house and you have plumbing needs, you're going to go call that professional or the electrical needs. Like you call the professionals to help, right? And that's what this is about. And so that's what we'll do is start with the education piece because that's so important. That's what will sustain you long term, not just fix something right now, but also the sustainable part as things continue to change in your life and grow and all the things, right? But that's the biggest difference.
Okay. Just a few more things. Do you have a favorite investment as of right now? Not necessarily a stock or anything like that, but maybe like an asset class or just something that you really excited about.
Real estate. Real estate still continues to be
Good
one of
answer.
my favorite asset classes. Now, I know there's like cryptocurrency, there's all these others, but for me, I love the tangibility of having real estate. For example, if there's ever natural disasters or anything that happens, you have a place you can go, you have properties and so forth. So for me, I'm always real estate backed type assets is my favorite. And I could talk about that too at nauseum, but
Okay.
that is definitely one of my favorites. It never fails. There's so many things that you can do within the umbrella of real estate, whether it's owning properties, whether it's owning the debt of the properties, or a combination of the two. But there's always so much you can do with that, and that one's still top of the line for me.
Okay. Well, I know some people are definitely going to tune in, tap in with us on the 26th at 1:30. We'll make sure everyone has all the information for that. But if there's someone who can't make that or they just can't wait to get started, how do they get in contact with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn and you can reach out to me there, or I think you'll be able to submit like a little link and you can schedule a quick 15-minute call with me where you can talk through whatever your needs are and figure out what needs to happen and all the things. So I'm accessible and you can always reach me at any time.
Perfect. Now, being from Seattle, you're down in the San Diego area, which I want to be down in the sun. Just very quick, we can just personally talk, so t tell me about what has that transition been like going, to a new place and establishing yourself and what has that been like for you?
Well, it's been quite the transition moving from Seattle down to San Diego. And moving here, I didn't exactly have people here or family here or anything like that. So I truly was venturing out into a new city. The reason why I was doing that is one, lifestyle, right? I was looking to increase my quality of life, right? Because that was the whole point. We work hard, we make and get money. Like, are we happy in where we're at and what we're doing? And for me, I need to have sunshine, I need to have beaches. That's what makes me happy. Plus, I love living very close to Mexico because I can go over there and I can shop and I can have a great time. So I love being down in SoCal, but coming here made me realize several things. Anytime you move to a new city, you have to acclimate and adjust to what it takes to be successful there, right? What it takes to be successful in Seattle is different than what it takes to be successful in any other part of the country. Same thing with New York, Miami, take your pick, right? But coming here and being exposed to this particular type of a lifestyle made me realize several things, which is also why I'm in the business of finance now, because I'm like, oh, we've got to take up a notch in terms of what we're doing with our money. Now, if you look at California, you'll notice we're high on taxes, right? But they have multimillionaires per capita. Like they're people who are here, they're doing well, just fine,
Yeah.
right? Why is that? Well, because there's ways around taxes. So that's one of the first things I've learned is what are we doing with taxes to get around that so that we're not paying more than what we need to, but how are we mitigating all of that, right? To make sure it makes sense. So being here has definitely put that level of pressure on. You need to know what you're doing with the taxes. And not necessarily that I know everything about the taxes, but rather we have our tax professionals that we know these things are going to be in place and that there are ways around it. So that's the first thing. And I think that's probably one of the things everyone's like, well, oh, it's so expensive there. And I'm like, there's some hidden tricks and tools here, which is why people are able to be here comfortably and why the homes that they live in are usually the third and fourth homes that they're living in here.
See,
Because there's,
see. Okay, okay, yeah, yeah.
right?
Okay, yeah, we will have a separate conversation. I'm gonna book my 15 minutes with you. Also, again, just a reminder, so September 26th, which is my sister's birthday, actually, 1:30 p.m. So we'll share the link and everything to get that going. Thank you so much for sitting down and chatting with me, Gus. Is there anything else I can ask you? Anything you wanna chat through real quick?
You know what? I'm really looking forward to diving deeper into all of this because I think there's a lot of people who can use this information to basically level up your finances. So,
Perfect. I'm excited. Thank you again, and I'm gonna come down to San Diego, come and
yeah.
visit. So in the Seattle, I think this is our last warm day, so the gloom is
Oh,
about to set in. So I definitely got to book my trip and come
yeah,
check
you
out.
have to, because now we're starting to level out back down to the 70s. So,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect.
One day.
Love it. All right, thank you so much, Gusty.
Thanks. Bye.